Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this 117th edition of ClariTea Chat. Today we have with us Samiran Ghosh, top technology podcaster of 3 Techies Banter or 3 TB. You can confuse it for 3 terabytes. That's okay.
That was the idea.
Welcome, Samiran, to ClariTea Chat.
Thanks, Jagdish. And that was it's 170th. I mean, now I know when guests who are kind of invited very, very late in the Kapil Sharma show, how they feel, that anxiety and then excitement, that, finally I've made it.
Oh, no. It's always, as they say, better late than never. Okay, so Samiran, let me do a quick introduction. Samiran is a Mumbaiite, alumnus of Kirti College and Mumbai University. He has a stellar career between IBM, Microsoft, DNB, all the MNCs. He has been flitting between consulting to operations to consulting. We'll come to that in a bit. And now in a completely new avatar of a podcaster. So he's never been scared of the challenges of change, and we'll hear his story. He co-authors fintech books, writes a guest column for the Mint, and also works for animal welfare. So he'll take us through his journey of evolution via diverse roles and challenges. And one of those was actually the Aadhar initiative of the government of India. And now that's a story of perseverance of how he got his role. So I'm actually looking forward to that story as well. His current philosophy, and I'll call it current only, is that every business model is not just for scaling. Well, that means that you can be doing what you love to do. You can keep it simple without anxieties or complexities of having to grow continuously. Again, something we'll hear from Samiran as we go along. So we will, in short, we will cover a few things very important and highlighted in his journey. One is, this splitting between consulting to operations, and the challenges and learnings. Working on Aadhar program, that's a very inspirational story. Well, I think everybody would be waiting for it. The 3 Techies Banter podcast, how it started and how it evolved, and what were the key moments in the journey. Maybe some other bit about something people grapple through in the course of organization's growth. With mergers and acquisitions, disparate systems come in. He has had some experience with those centralizing disparate systems. And finally, the transition from a corporate role to an advisor and experiences. Well, I find this important because a lot of people tell me that they wish to do it, but they can't do it. So let's have a discussion on that as well. So we'll end the chat with a rapid fire round to bring out the personal side of Samiran, and then there will be a reverse question to me. But for now, Samiran, before we start talking of serious things, let's get some energy going up. So please share, the funniest or the most interesting incident from your professional life.
So, Jagdish, when you kind of asked me to think about it, I really thought about it. And believe me, there have been a lot of goof ups and funny things that have happened in this time. But the one thing that was funny and at the same time insightful was, when during my IBM days, we were doing huge transitions and work from Europe, moving and all. And just in casual conversations, we were just having a chat, and we were discussing this thing about life and life after death and rebirth and blah blah blah. So we were just having a quick chat. So one of them suddenly said, "You know what? I want to be reborn in France, and I want to be reborn as a woman." I said, "Wow, where did that come from all of a sudden?" So the reason was very, very deep actually. So apparently in France, it's illegal to work more than 36 hours. So if you work more than that, you pay tax. Okay. So that was so which is the reason that you can only make them work that much. And the moment you reach the 36th or 37th hour, you have to hire another resource. So there is no concept of overtime. And the funny thing also was that in the week, supposing you are a lady and you choose to work from home because of whatever pressures and child or what have you, then the government legally allows you to, work 4 days, and the fifth day they pay. So like IBM pays 4 days and you pay the fifth day. I said, wow. I mean, this was like, it had huge ramifications for transitions, migrations, and at the same time, it was like hilarious. And of course, a lot of other French things. It was the only cafeteria in IBM that used to serve wine during lunchtime. And it was like the French office was actually in a castle, and lots of other stories like that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know this part, that you have to hire somebody. Oh my God! I mean, it will be it will be almost criminal to be an entrepreneur.
Can you imagine? Oh yeah, it was crazy. I mean, lots of stories like that. When SITs, UATs, Saturday, Sunday, we needed to take special permission, and that matter used to get escalated all the way to GM Europe and all, because it is illegal. I mean, you just cannot work.
I know,
So
I
yeah.
know, I know. Well, I can sense that you had some good time there. You know, legally, you can say.
No, no, absolutely.
No, that's great. That's great. Hey, thanks, Samiran, for that insightful thing. I'm sure many of our audience would now be thinking that, okay, you know what, France, next gen. Okay, before we go forward, I mean, let me do a quick audience acknowledgement. So, we have CXOs, founders, IT managers, and seasoned technology industry leaders in our audience. All of us know that technology is necessary, but not sufficient for business performance. The guests on ClariTea Chat, like Samiran, we have built the bridge between the necessary and sufficient with the art of managing technologies. And ClariTea Chat builds that bridge between their learnings and all of you who are trying to make an impact with technology. And thank you all for joining us for the last 116 episodes and encouraging us with your interactions and questions. Keeps us going. May I request all our audience to share their name and where you are joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube. And let's see who all are already here. I can already see some comments. So we have we have Amarinder here. Good evening, Samiran, Ghosh, Jagdish, Velwa. Greetings to everyone from Namma, Bengaluru. Hey, thanks, Amarinder, for joining. And then we have Nitin Harne. Nitin is again from Bangalore. Hey, hi, Nitin.
And
Uh,
he's saying that his Capgemini office is also in a castle.
oh, wow. That's a French love for castles. I think it's more like, the fear of being raided by the Englishman.
Maybe. You're very right.
Yeah. Okay. I just saw this comment. He says, so true. My Capgemini offices, University HQ are in Castle. Yeah. And then Amarinder passes on a compliment, Samiran. You have made it much earlier, Samiran Ghosh. Great to see you at ClariTea Chat. Okay. So great. Guys, everyone else, please keep your comments coming. I mean, makes us feel that we are not talking to just each other on camera. It's not a video call, but all of you are also watching it. And thanks, Amrinder and Nitin, for those messages. So let's get it going. And by the way, I want to tell you, Samiran, that because this recording will persist on YouTube and LinkedIn for as long. We do see actually a lot of people coming in and watching the recording, and we see that within a week, especially during Sunday and after that, people do find that 1 hour long enough time to watch it and comment. So the discussion and this whole thing continues. It doesn't end with we we ending our live chat. Okay. So Samiran,
Exactly.
yeah. So Samiran, let's start. So please give us an overview of your education, career, company's roles, and maybe one highlight of each.
So very quickly, like I said, that 29 years, pass a blink of an eye. This is the things that you used to think your parents would hear from parents literally. So I another fun fact is that while I've spent all my career in technology, most of my education is actually finance, and that's where I started my life. I started my career in equity research. Uh, about a year and a half of it, very quickly realized that I wasn't going to make it there, and that's when my whole uh, so it was a company called Iris, very small startup. I think now it's grown. That also, strangely enough, has grown into a technology company now. So after that, TCS, 4 years, very interesting times. I was with management consulting there. Did work with a lot of work with the government actually at that time. Did some work with SAP. Initial days, first RFPs coming to Indian companies, very little resources, uh, and very funny things happened there also. That we I distinctly remember being in Nagpur at 49 degrees temperature in a sweltering heat at the collector's office, and there was a banyan tree in the compound. And the job of the driver there was to make sure that the boss's car was always in the shade. So he was, as the shade of the banyan tree moved, his car moved around so that the car was always kept cool. So TCS, lots of such, first assignment abroad, lots of things to be thankful for. First training, went for training abroad. So lots of great things in TCS. Then IBM, largest part of my career, lot of fun times. In fact, when we used to go to campus from IBM, before everybody started asking, why aren't you, didn't you become as successful as other tech companies, like the Microsofts and also, we used to kind of just say that, only, the great have the privilege of other people making fun of them. So, there are lots of fun IBM acronyms. It's called, it's better manually, I blame Microsoft, and my personal favorite was, idiots become managers. So they all stand for IBM. But 14 years IBM, lots of different careers, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Consulting, sales, a large part in global delivery, CBIL practice. And then, of course, I took that 1 year break to go work with Aadhar, came back. After that, 2013, moved to Microsoft, 2 years as chief digital advisor, basically talking to clients about how they can grow their business technologically, digital adoption, and of course, drive adoption of the Azure cloud. And one of the things we landed up doing, Jagdish, was we did a very large project with Tata Motors, which was that sports car that unfortunately never saw the light of day, but we saw 2.5 million downloads at least on the Forza Horizon 3 game. So Microsoft, interesting. Before Microsoft, sorry, completely forgot. DNB, 2 years I was leading Asia for DNB. Again, very, very different business, risk, credit, from a business point of view. Very interesting technology, and even from a structure point of view as to how they operated their businesses. And interesting things came out of that, as we will discuss later, about how we had to consolidate those systems and practices. And finally, post 2018, decided that I had kind of earned time for myself. So I've been an advisor, independent consultant for startups, large corporates. Did some work with McKinsey as an independent consultant. Writing, keynote speaking, some, do a lot of work with colleges and students, just advising and all that. And then, of course, the podcast, which was, again, like a lot of things, starts accidentally and kind of gathers steam and kind of gets a life of itself. So yeah, very, very interesting.
No, that's interesting. So maybe um, I mean, I think the takeaways are once we start diving deeper into those roles. But yeah, I mean, I love those IBM acronyms. And idiots become managers. Simply too funny. By the way, by the way, I was in Nagpur on Thursday. Okay, and
Acha.
I'm on a board of a company there, and there was this board meeting for annual results and all that. But you know what? I can tell you that this driver was doing this thing on his own. Maybe the boss would have. I mean, the people there are like very, very, you can say very docile, or like very hierarchy conscious and all that. And that's like I've been going there for last 1.5 years, and this is my observation. The boss would have just commented, "अरे यार, गाड़ी गरम है, क्या छाया नहीं है आसपास?" And then this guy would have taken his meeting
Very this
agenda
thing.
to move it
Very
around.
silly. I can just tell you this. Just a side note on that, on this hierarchy thing. So the Gorkha regiment, right? It's a very fearful this thing. So so there was some friend of ours. His father was commanding it. So in a assembly, he asked, who all can jump out? Who are volunteered to jump out of the parachute, out of the plane? Not this. So, he got few hands up. Then, the second Indian commander asked 2-3 times. So it was a group of 50 people, 10, 12, 15 people finally raised their hands. So the commanding officer got very shocked. He said, what happened? Why are they not raising their hands? Is there something wrong? So then he spoke, the second in command spoke to them in Gorkhali. So he said, साहब उनको लगा था कि पैराशूट के बिना कूदना है, इसीलिए वो लोग 15 लोग हाथ ऊपर कर दिए.
Oh
So
my
that is so
God.
much of the Gorkhas. Yeah, they're like.
Okay. So
Anyway.
no. This is funny. Without parachute, भी 15 लोग.
वही मतलब they're like so crazy and this thing, right? And then साहब ने बोला है तो बस खुद जाना है. So that is that.
Yeah, that's right. So Samiran, let's shift gears. So you were in consulting role in TCS, and then you got into a consulting role in IP, and then you somehow transitioned into the IT operations role. So how was this experience? And actually, I see this. Why I see this very relevant today is because I see a lot of people, who are, I mean, all the organizations are like, they're scurrying for IT talent, and to execute their digital programs, and they are tapping the talent base which is in the IT service organizations, consulting organizations, and all. But my personal experience has been that it is a big change management that happens. So share your experience, and and then what were your learnings?
No, Jagdish, you are absolutely right that it is a nightmarish experience, actually, to be very honest, to begin with, because nothing from consulting prepares you for operations. Because in consulting, it is, for want of a better way of explaining it, that you are advising without consequences, okay, in the sense direct consequences to you. But in operations, it is the consequences are directly felt by you. And for me, what happened was that in the course of that IBM journey, I actually landed up heading sales and distribution operations for IBM globally. So IBM.com, there was a tool called Selectica for product configuration, the pricing tool, Siebel, all of that was under me. And the problem was that you couldn't hide. In the sense, you couldn't like say I'm not available, because you were in the company directory, everybody would find you. So it was honestly, it was very, very tough in the beginning. And one of the big things we were doing at that time, other than of course managing this thing, that IBM and Lenovo had just decided to sell Lenovo. So there was this huge operation on to do system separation of IBM and Lenovo systems. It was like it was the complete reverse of consolidation. They were actually physically dividing the systems, one going Lenovo's way, one going IBM's way, and some 196 applications were being reconfigured to move in both directions. And it was crazy. When I got the job, I mean, just to take 2 steps back, earlier I was just a resource in India, working with the teams in the US, which were kind of called client teams, so to speak. All of a sudden, due to some experiment, I was kind of given this role of heading a team, and in the IBM parlance is called that delivery project executive. So you get budgets and blah blah. All of a sudden, teams in France, in the US, in South America, people who saw me as a resource were reporting to me. Okay. And the way IBM did it, they hardlined the reporting, which means appraisals, increments, everything. It wasn't just project teams. Everything was, so it was like people's livelihoods kind of changed completely. Anyway, that being said, just the whole experience is, nothing prepares you for it. I still remember being on a continuous escalation call for 36 hours. Means it was back to back 36, and so much so because it was stationed in the US. Actually, I ran out of food. Okay, because there was no food left at home because it was 36 hours. And then I called some friends and there was nothing open. So there was some nearby temple which was giving bhog, okay? And they got the khichdi from there because there was no food place available at that time.
Oh my
So,
God.
but the learnings are that the operations team's work is very, very challenging, very different. But I think the bonds and the friendships and the learnings you get from there is because it's literally like being battle scarred, like that band of brothers kind of thing, the syndrome. Because you've been through so much ups and downs in that process that you really develop great friendships, relationships, and of course learnings in terms of how you plan anything and everything that can go wrong. But yeah, it was a crazy experience when I started, and I first 3 months I regretted every moment of it. But as it kind of plateaued, it became great. We actually went on to win 2 IBM CIO Excellence Awards, and obviously the teams got much more recognition and all that. So yeah, uh, very bad start, but a very good end.
Oh no, no, awesome, awesome. It's like I mean, this is how it ends up. In fact, for people who I have worked with, people who came from consulting, and so there are a few things that they say. One is this, like, this accountability, because the buck stops at you. When you're a consultant, the buck still stops at your client, right? But here the
Correct,
buck
correct.
stops at you, so therefore there is a greater onus on you, and of course greater time commitment, etc. But then there's also a greater sense of fulfillment, right? And you have to take a longer and larger perspective of the work that's happening, because eventually your clients are the internal employees, or let's say your partners and all, uh, who are not going to let you go. They are
No,
going to
no,
be around.
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, one of the things that I kind of frequently quote to people is, if you've seen this movie called Invictus, there's this conversation between Nelson Mandela and Francois Pena, which is Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. He says that where Mandela is asking, how do you inspire your teams to do their best? And Francois Pena says that, I do by example. And so to which Nelson Mandela asks that, but that is true, like by example is good, but how do you get them to do better than they think that they can be? Which means that, how do you inspire people to do better? And then especially when things are really down, everything's failing, everybody's shouting at you. How do you, get people up? Very, very interesting. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's
Yeah,
accountability in everything. Yeah.
yeah, accountability, and therefore that sense of achievement, and that sense of fulfillment and all that. Yeah. So I know what I used to do was, so people who were coming to me from the consulting side, I used to tell them, I used to warn them, guys, it is going to be tougher. But I also used to tell them that it's going to be more fulfilling, and
True.
you are going to learn much more of business than you will do in consulting. In consulting, we feel that, like, we have learned a lot of business process and all that, but the real learning happens after the go lives, and after, like, after people start coming back with all their satisfactions and complaints and all that. Anyway, so let's move on. I think as of now, there is a question from Amarinder. Let me bring it. So he says, the question to Samiran: given your rich experience with IBM, TCS, government, and now as digital advisor to corporates and startups, what is the future of RFPs? Is there an alternate way to solicit bids and evaluate technology partners for large size projects? it will be great to get more than 2 cents from Jagdish. Samiran, the
So,
question is to you. Please go ahead.
no, absolutely. Thanks. Thanks, Amarinder. So I can only tell you from what I've seen from my experience of late is that the age of the classical RFP generally is nearly dead. I mean, there may be still governments and uh, people who have to by process put it out because it is a regulatory or a compliance requirement. But other than that, that seems to be out. And what the future seems to be more is around people doing fast sprints, people doing hackathons, people kind of putting things together, experimenting and moving forward. I've not seen people mounting a large program to do something. I mean, large corporates still do it, but that is very unlikely to be the flavor of the future. I mean, large RFPs really seem to be a domain for compliance and government organizations, but corporates have kind of just found much faster, agile, nimble ways of doing things, which are very pointed, which are experimental. That whole fail fast methodology. So yeah, that's been my experience with it.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, since Amarinder asked my, opinion, generally, I like this concept that Gartner put out of the base layer of technology, right? The base layer framework for technology. So, where you have the bottom layer is basically, your system of records, your ERPs, your CRMs, and, your Microsofts, Active Directories, and all of that. These are your systems of records. And then you have these systems of differentiation, like, your major processes, like, your, like, for example, vendor management process, or your transport management process, or your, let's say, customer relationship management process, etc. And then on top of that is basically the systems of innovation, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, any organization at any point in time will have, projects going on in each of these three layers of, in each of these three layers of technology. So RFPs are very well, I mean, they will probably still be around there for the system of records. You want to do an ERP upgrade, you have probably all the wherewithals to write down what you want out of it, right? I mean, in terms of the scope, the integrations, and the, like, what needs to be done at, within that technology, etc. Or even if you want to develop a new I think accounting hasn't changed much in the last 200 years.
True, true, true.
So, well, compliances have, basic accounting hasn't, right? So that is something where it will still be there, I think. But what is happening, and just to kind of, like, agree with Samiran that, that part has been done. Now it's about systems of differentiation and systems of innovation, and that's what digital transformation is all about. I think there the RFPs will not work, because RFPs, you know, at the core of the RFP is that I know what I want and I'm writing it down, okay, and now you have to deliver it. But, digital transformation programs generally start with an intent that, this is what we want to do, the how, and, the various kind of, things around it. They tend to fall in place in a very experimentative and iterative manner. And that's where I think, the agile and the sprint kind of methodologies fit much better. But I would say that if you're still doing a system of records program of any kind, I mean, if you write an RFP, there's no harm.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. What is fully understood, but like you said, very true, correctly, Jagdish, that uh, these large of these transformation or digital intent is really, you think you are trying to do something, but all of that changes as you kind of start and go on that journey. So it's very difficult to kind of document it, or what you document keeps changing. So it's not really a RFP, but it's like whatever. It's a dynamic document if at best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think there is, Nitin has added to this discussion. So he says the RFPs are with people nowadays, economic slowdown. And then he says, alternatively, Fortune 500 are also setting up own GCC and sourcing and all. I think if you, like, connect the two together, you will figure out that, most of these GCCs, they are done with the SIs, with the large SIs, because they have transformed their fundamental systems of records by and large, right? And every one of them is now trying to, like, be ahead on the digital bus. And
True.
that's where your RFPs will not work. Even your TNMs may not work. That's where you need the direct control on the delivery. You need own managers. You want to like, do these sprints and these daily sync ups, as to how the work is happening, and focus more on the productization of technology rather than, like, rather than any automation, etc., etc. So I kind of can connect the two together very well as to why GCCs, they are setting up their own GCCs rather than giving it to any of the big SIs. Yeah. So let's move on, Samina. Unless you have something else to add to this discussion, we can move
No, I think enough said, I think.
on. But great question. Thanks, Amarinder, for starting that discussion. That was a great question.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So Samiran, the other story that I really picked up in our discussion, the prep discussion that we do. So just for the audience sake, what we do is, a few days before this chat happens, we do a prep chat where we identify those highlights that we want to talk about, because we have a limited time of 1 hour. Otherwise, we can talk about our lives for many hours. So we pick up some specific themes and, highlights which have a value for the audience. So we actually look at them from the point of view of what value it will add to the audience. So the one that I picked up was, while Samiran said it in a matter of factly way, I said, no, this is something that, that's a good story. So Samiran, talk to us about your Aadhar experience and how you got into it, etc., etc.
So, Jagdish, in fact, thanks for mentioning this prep. And I when we spoke, I kind of gave you this thing, and then I started thinking about it. How did it even come about? So, again, the start of it was kind of a little behind. IBM had this program called CSC, Corporate Service Corps. So they used to pick people from all over the world, make them in a group, and send them to different countries to do projects. So I was kind of picked in the first batch of this CSC program, and they had a fairly rigorous process of selection, whatever. And I was supposed to go to Turkey with a team, and work with NGOs and governments and all there for 1 month. And for some reason, it got cancelled. So we went to South Africa, for a whole month. Quite coincidentally, that was the only year that the IPL was outside India. It was 2009. If you recall, I think Indian elections were at that time, and there was some attack on Sri Lankan cricketers in Lahore, and so there was some security consideration. So it was in South Africa. So after I came back, I was like all excited and charged up to say, the CSC is a great program. We must extend it. So I started. I realized how fearless and thoughtless I was at that time, that I started writing to everybody in IBM saying, we should do this because, if you want to do work with the government and all, we should send people on secondment to the government. That's when the government trusts you, right? Because it should at least 6 months that this is IBM's investment in the government. And after that, you can at least go and ask for us, because the government bureaucracy and all that, they don't trust people who just come from outside and say, we understand, right? If you have done and shown your commitment, then it works. So I wrote to a lot of people and all that. They said, oh, great idea, great thinking, but nothing happened. So then, out of some sheer foolhardiness, I thought I will do this myself. So that's when I started. I started asking and doing what have you. So I realized it was a little difficult, because obviously there were ways they were recruiting themselves, and I think Nandan Nilekani was also putting together this team. I tried it; it didn't work out at that time, or whatever. I didn't get the response, or the experience didn't match, or what have you. So I kept doing it. I kept finding out, what was the way, which were the vendors, who was doing the project, who was doing biometrics and all of that. Then, just very in the interest of time, I mean, it was like a long process, but I chanced upon this organization called NISG, the National Institute for Smart Government. So it was a Section 25 company set up by the government of India, and it did a lot of work for Aadhar, because they were a government organization. So the Aadhar program gave a lot of work to them to do, whether it was like in those days, still RFP writing, specs formation, managing teams, implementation. So I worked on this application authentication framework. But the process was, so I went on, even that went on for 6 months, kept calling. The CEOs of NISG kept changing. I kept calling, and there was only board numbers and also because nobody gave me any mobile. Uh, and very finally, kind of, I had a bit of good luck because typically this organization was an appointment from the government. So that one time they gave this job to a gentleman called Mr. Sanjeev Mittal, who was ex IBM, ex Bharti, and they were experimenting with private sector, you know. So just on an off chance, he called me to his office. I think I waited for 3-4 hours, and then in fact he told me, "Why do you want to do this? You're just crazy. Don't even think about it. You have no idea what you're getting into." So again, like I said, foolhardy. So I said, no, I will. So he agreed to it. But the other interesting part of the story is that IBM at that point did not allow me to go. IBM said, either you resign or you don't go. So at that point, then I resigned from IBM. On the second last day of my notice period, I got leave of absence from the IBM leadership in HR in the US, saying that, okay, I think this is a good idea. You can go and work. And that's how my Aadhar thing came to fruition. That, it went all the way up to resigning from IBM and all of that. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of Ekta Kapoor OTT serial story. But
So maybe,
yeah.
yeah. No. So just a quick bit about what specific parts of Aadhar did you work on?
So so I worked on the application authentication framework of it, which is basically that when different applications go and validate themselves against Aadhar, so there are government systems which go and which are supposed to be for free. And the thinking at that time is that as you kind of go up the value chain where there is economic benefit, all the way up to bank KYCs or others who based on that are going to make money, then there will be a charge levied, that for that authentication. So if it's a subsidy, it will be one thing. If it is, just if it's a voter ID thing, if it is income tax validating with Aadhar, it's one. NSDL will be one way, and all of that. And then of course, if it became like the Zerodas and all of that, which is kind of doing for economic benefit, then it will be kind of there will be a way at the back end to charge and whatnot. So that was the whole idea there was that it should only be proof of existence, which means it should only say that so and so person existed, whether it is by number or by biometric, not reveal anything more in terms of their demographics. So that was the piece I worked on. And because I was in NISG, I kind of got sucked into a few other things, which was I did some work with the Delhi Jal Board. I was kind of involved in some ghirao of Delhi Jal Board offices by the tanker walas. So all kinds of. Then I worked with there is this organization called PESO, Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization. You don't know about them. They are based in Nagpur, by the way, and they control all this right from the Jamnagar factory all the way to petrol pumps and explosives. This thing. So at that time, a lot of trucks were getting stolen by Naxals. So they wanted to do a tracking of explosives around the country. So that was another ancillary project that I got involved in. So yeah, very interesting. I mean, very good material for sharing in talks like this, if nothing else.
Oh no. I mean, see what I really loved about this one is that developing a conviction and then like taking it all the way. If the organization doesn't listen to you, then you do it yourself. Okay. and despite all the
I mean, sometimes maybe on hindsight you feel maybe today I wouldn't do it, but you have to be maybe passionate enough, and like I said, we're a little foolish also to do it. at that point. If you think back and say
Yeah,
that of the
absolutely, absolutely.
consequences, you may not do it now, but yeah.
Yeah. So, that's what basically gives you the wisdom to tell others who, not just do it or not do it, but like, why you should do it or why you should not do it.
Right, right,
Because
right, right.
the wisdom that comes from, like, your first-hand experience of doing it yourself, and like, and stumbling on it. I mean, that's the best experience. So Samiran, I'm also aware of time. I know you have a hard stop at 6 o'clock. So I'm parking some questions regarding TNB and Microsoft with for the rapid fire, because
Sure.
I don't want to miss out on the podcasting experience.
Oh
So,
yeah, oh, yeah.
so tell us the why and how and what of the podcasting journey, and and tell us, like, I mean, how. Again, I'm looking at it like, I've again come across people who say that, I want to start a podcast. I don't know how and why and all that. So just tell your story of why you started it, how you started it, and how, and some milestones and some nice memorable events on the way.
So Jagdish, this podcast current now in this time and era is become what in the 70s and 80s used to be, that everybody used to say I have a band, and so now everybody is like I have a podcast. It's like everybody has or wants to have a podcast. So that, but for us, I have to admit again, I mean, it was a little accidental and experimental. So we were just three friends, and this was like COVID, post COVID. A lot of things were virtual. People were not meeting up. So we were just having a chat about something uh, generally. And I think quite accidentally, there was somebody else, some another person joined who came from some background which was sound and production and all that. So then that person suddenly said, why don't you all do something? It's such an easy conversation, and it doesn't seem like you are trying very hard and all that. So we were actually very skeptical in the beginning. We said, first of all, we are very conscious. How do you say? One thing is just chatting, the other is recording, putting it out there. So he said, don't worry, just do five, maybe 3, 4, 5 episodes, and then we'll start. So I think that's how the journey started. Though the first few were, in my opinion, not that great. Uh, I think we even did a few retakes. We didn't know what to say. We were like talking over each other, because you can't figure out, and because it was still virtual, because we have never done it in a studio. Then sound was a problem, light was a problem. We didn't know that you need to have when you have to do it at a quality, then you need good quality sound. uh, uh, we realized the power of wired connections over wireless, that wireless is highly undependable when you're doing studio recording. So then we said nothing to, you have to have a LAN port where you put it in, and that is the only way you can be safe. uh, but along the way, I think it became a process of learning for all of us also, in the sense, we of course started with the usual, metaverse and blockchain, crypto, AI. Then we did uh, ESG and technology. We did election tech. We did an episode for Gen Z, and what they see as their understanding of technology, and in that process, uh, we started doing our own artwork. We started doing our own descriptions. We started doing our own social media posts and all of that. So it became an overall experience of how podcasting works and how technology works in that is, and of course, with the chat GPTs and the imaging software and all that, now we do all of our artwork in Mid Journey and Dali and Runway. We do all of our bringing it together in Canva and all that. None of these tools are things we would have ever touched if we were moving around in our normal life at all. Then we have for the people who listen, we were doing our normal episodes. Then we realized we needed to do something funny. And the all the reason why we of course started this whole thing was also because we thought technology should be conversational, should be fun, there should be a sense of humor. And if you kind of hear some of our episodes, you'll realize sometimes we crack a joke and we laugh at it ourselves only, because and then people say that why are you doing that. And the point is that if we only don't find our jokes funny, then who will? So anyway, so we have a shorts version. So we have a shorts version where we talk about silly trivia, about the similarity between the size of the space shuttle rocket and Roman chariots and the horses' asses and what have you, all kinds of weird things. So just keeping the trivia going, and we've got very very interesting and surprising feedback. We got a small nephew of someone who's 10 years old in New Zealand saying, I listened to your blockchain episode and I found it interesting. Right, to people stuck in Bangalore traffic who are saying, oh, it's great fun listening because at least we are smiling when we are driving and we are stuck in traffic. So while it's not a retail massy product, but it's got a very nice niche audience, and we get a lot of side benefits from it in terms of branding, work, recognition, and all kinds of strange people have heard about the podcast. So very very so I think the key lesson was, if it's sounding strange and you don't want to do it, you know let this direct skill and all not be a barrier. If you're enjoying it, it's fun, then figure out a way to do it. And I think if work becomes fun, then it's not work anymore. So I think that's what the podcast has become for us. It's just a fun thing we do. And yeah, that's really it.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. And Samiran, so coming to like my own experience of hosting Clarity Chat, I think one is that this whole purpose, when you said that that technology should not be in some castle somewhere, it should be you want to demystify technology, right? So that's one part of it, and then the other part of it is that you want to have fun, right?
Mhm.
I think the fun part evolves once you get comfortable, with all the equipment and all the funny stuff that we didn't do in our corporate life and all that, right? Then it starts becoming fun. My journey has been similar. I am now actually pretty good at Canva myself.
There you are.
Team members, I teach them how to use Canva.
The-
I don't think I had heard of Canva when I was in my corporate roles. It was only when I said, what, I used to write on LinkedIn. What, LinkedIn, just write a post, and if you put a evocative picture somewhere, even if it is like a real photo or whatever, picture says 1,000 words. So, and I used to wonder, like, how do these people, create these, something,
right.
a couple of pictures and some text and like, some, some sort of funny, shape around it and all. And then somebody recommended Canva, and we just started having fun with it. The Canva was the where LinkedIn became fun for me.
Ah, there you go.
Absolutely. So, just a few takeaways from here. Like, so I think the purpose has to be strong for you to go along, right? So demystifying technology has been purpose. Again, something accidental, as you mentioned, right? You guys were having a nice tech chat, and somebody said, "Oh, you know what? This is nice. This can become a podcast." And of course, yes. This actually puts us on a on the path to the next question, which is about, like, coming on your own, right? So what I have seen, whether it's Three Techies Mentor or whether it is Clarity Chat, things like that, kind of help you build your own brand, rather than. So maybe let me start with this. When we are part of the biggest question is actually that a lot of people actually want to come out of a corporate drudgery and they want to start something on their own, but they're really scared. Okay, and they sometimes feel jealous that, when somebody like you and me have been able to do it. So, how to do it, and let me start the conversation saying that, when we are associated with a brand, actually that brand is bigger than us, but then,
Absolutely. That
that
is true.
gets us the recognition. But the moment you come out and you, where's the brand? And then you have to work on building your own brand, right? So let's
Right.
start the conversation on that. So your journey of coming out of corporate, learning the ropes around being an entrepreneur, being an advisor, and and then building the brand, 3 decades Venture brand.
So so from where I am today, you're absolutely right, Jagdish. I get a lot of people ask me this question. Oh, you've done this. It's great. How can I do it? I want to get out. So first of all, I kind of try to dissuade them. I said that, this is completely wrong. Don't do it, because there are hundreds of other considerations. There is liability. There is, what is your cost, cash flow, those dirty nitty gritty nuts and bolts things that you have to worry about. And I said, I also tell them, see, you cannot look at a Shah Rukh Khan or a Cristiano Ronaldo and say that I will be that. You have to see what they have done for the last 15 years to get where they are today. So it's a long journey, for whoever it is. I mean, I'm not trying to say that. So if you feel that, I might be doing something which is fun and maybe aspiration for you, but be prepared for all of that, it will take to get there. And there will be times when there'll be no assignments. There'll be times when, like you mentioned, you'll make 30 calls, nobody will return your calls. You will be stuck in a room of very, very young people who will, not think that you have anything fun interesting to say, or they're always looking for an outcome in that one meeting. So we are used to, having a conversation and say, this will build this. Kuch maza nahi aaya. So then that's the end of it. So, all of those setbacks and all are part of the journey. But if you are convinced that this is what you want to do, then yes, then remember that this is for me at least, again, my learning has been that this is about really truly about individual merit. This is where the rubber hits the road, that whether you as an individual have value and have something to contribute, because there is no one, you can't say I'll send another resource who will talk to you on this subject. It begins and ends with you. So I think as far as at least assignments and all go, that has been a big learning, a big kind of level setter. And if once you think you're like very, very smart and very cool, but that kind of brings you down to the ground. And I always tell this to people that you need to be financially very sure that you can take a hit for X amount of time if you want to go down this path. It's while all the other stuff, I want to find myself and I want to be doing things is great. But if you've got bills to pay, you've got stuff to do, it's plan for that, because otherwise a journey half done is no journey at all, because then you would have left a corporate, come halfway, and then you would have not done well here, and then you going back to the corporate is very, very difficult. So I think that's a very a non-trendy, non-fashionable thing to say, but I think it has to be seeded in that practicality also. And then of course there is skill, there is passion, and there is you want to do something, you get time to do other things. There are lots of great things that happen if it starts working out. You can take time for doing painting, you can do a podcast, you can advise, or you can just do nothing if you don't want to. All that is good. So
you can play golf. You can play golf.
Oh yeah. So that's the other thing I kind of learned, that I think I spoke with Sabhi, he told me that you have been a large part of his improving some of his golf shots, apparently. No, yeah. So that's been, I mean, that journey has been, of course, interesting and conscious, and I wanted to do this. And there are a lot of other things that I'm doing on the side which keeps me busy. The podcast, there's this eternal Bengali quest of doing a PhD which I'm still following. So that is on, and a few other things. But yeah, but then I've planned my life around those things, that to say that, there will be dips and ups and downs in terms of finance, which you need to take those hits, and then you can do this other cool thing. Otherwise,
Absolutely. Yeah. No, so I mean, I mean, good takeaways, and I'll kind of paraphrase them, from a takeaway point of view for the audience. So point number one is, I think, there's a huge financial call. In fact, they say that biggest, you can say antidote of entrepreneurship is your monthly salary. Because
right.
the moment you come on your own, you don't get your monthly salary, right? And in fact, they also, I mean, there's another one that, the working man's opium is the salary that you get on the first, right? And whether you've been on vacation for the whole month, you will still get your salary, right? I mean, so being an entrepreneur is a full-time job. So first thing, you have to do your number crunching. You have to do your math, right? So first thing is that there should be no EMIs, right? Then you should know what is your minimum viable sustenance, right? What's the money you need at a minimum to sustain every month, and not just sustain every month, but to have a good life. And I have seen that, when I did it, Samiran, I was shocked that, including my kids' fees and everything, that number wasn't a big number, right? That gave me the confidence to come out. But that number crunching will give you the confidence.
True.
It's
I
actually
agree.
it's actually a fraction of your salary, to lead a nice life and have all the flexibility that you want. I think the other thing that you mentioned, again, I'm paraphrasing it. See, I want to get out of a corporate rut is half of the equation, right? The other half of it is like, what are you going to do after that?
True.
Right? And that means then there is a whole bit of exploration that is required there. What am I good at, right? I mean, what am I personally good at, as you mentioned, right? What am I personally good at? You also have to look at it from an outside in point of view, that, what is the product or service that you're going to make out of that capability, right? Then the third thing is that, I mean, it's a crowded world. I mean, how are you going to make your presence felt, right? So, as I said, we always, in our corporate lives, we always introduce ourselves that I'm so and so from so and so. It was never that
Absolutely.
I am Jagdish Belwal, right? It was always I'm Jagdish Belwal, or I'm Jagdish Belwal from Chi, right? In fact, even now, sometimes I introduce myself. I'm Jagdish Belwal, ex-CIO of Tata Motors, right? So it doesn't go easily. That the brand was bigger. That, what you were known as, 80% of that was the brand, and maybe only 20% was you. So now, how are you going to fill up that gap? Right? So you got to be ready to, do something to, to build your brand. There are various things, like, I mean, Instagram Reels, or ClariTea Chat, or 3TB, or I mean, the choices are there, but you got to be ready to do it, and that's a completely new thing. That means, you are now,
Absolutely.
IT guys typically hate CMOs. Now you have to become a CMO.
Oh yes, absolutely, and you're absolutely right. And a lot of the work, you have to discover yourself, and discover what works for you. So, like you mentioned, everybody can't do reels, everybody can't do a post, everybody will not have something to say. So it's not a one size fits all, and a lot of this discovery, like you mentioned, might have to start as you are planning to get out also. So you cannot one fine day stand outside the gates of the organization and now discover. So there is a little bit of that parallel processing also that needs to happen if you really are choosing to do this.
No,
So
absolutely. Hey, so Samiran, I mean, I just realized, oh my God, like, we're out of time.
absolutely, I think we talked a lot, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that time flies.
Absolutely, yeah.
We get
No,
so
this is great.
engrossed. So before I let you go, Samina, if you have like a few more minutes, I just want to logically conclude this.
Sure.
Maybe, guys, if anybody has, any rapid fires for Samiran, though Samiran said he had a hard stop, I'm still holding it. On a live show, he cannot say bye bye Jagdish. I can't.
No, absolutely not.
So meanwhile, I know there's some resonance coming from Nitin. He says that for UIADI, I was part of TechM Solution and had multiple rounds with Pramod around September, October 2010. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
So in fact,
interesting.
Pramod has been on our show a few times now, and then Sujit, then Shankar Marwada, and all these guys. So like, at least just as a philosophy, we are also like heavily invested in that DPI idea that digital public infrastructure is a big this thing. So yeah, Pramod, we've had several rounds of conversations with him in our podcast journey. So that's another great learning that people who are inaccessible to you in one life become very accessible to you in another life. So we had Amish Tripathi on our show, and people want to come to your show as a guest, who
Yeah,
people you may not want to meet, you know, in a corporate situation. So yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
interesting turn
So
of events.
yeah, so Samir, one thing, we didn't really talk about DNB, so that's for another day. But then there were some interesting tidbits about Dun and Bradstreet that you mentioned. So tell us a couple of them.
So, Dan and Bradley, right? Yeah. So I'll tell you. So when I joined, I realized I thought, oh, old stodgy company was good, but very interesting, fun things they have in terms of a legacy in technology. Okay. So they were the first companies to use the telegraph. I think it was way back in 1847, 48 types. Then again in 1874, they were the first commercial customers of the Remington typewriter. So again, big leap of technology for that time. Then the company had these people who used to go door to door and collect data. Interesting fun fact about four future American presidents were what they called reporters. There was Abraham Lincoln, there was Ulysses Grant, there was Cleveland, and there was McKinley. All of these people actually worked in Dun and Bradstreet. Woody Harrelson also interned in uh, Dun and Bradstreet. And one of the first mainframes was bought by DNB after NASA. And the other thing that you will all know, a thing that DNB must be kicking themselves for is that Cognizant was born inside DNB. Uh, it was in 94. It was the internal unit of DNB in collaboration with Satyam, and later on it was sold out. And of course, Cognizant is where it is today. But lot of interesting things about technology started with DNB, but somebody else probably ran away with the ball later.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was just saying that, like, what if DNB still held a good stake in Cognizant? I mean, they would be much richer.
Absolutely.
So just one more question, Samir, and I'll skip the rest of them. This in the beginning we said that your current philosophy is every business model is not just for skilling. Just explain in a rapid fire format.
So very quickly, I think everything in the world has become about, if I have one thing, I must have 100 of them, and if I, so that's a big scale thing, which is fine. But I think you can still be small and be happy. And my classical example always has been my neighborhood Ashok Vada Pav wala. So that guy has his Vada Pav stall, and I think, is the line is never empty. In fact, he has become so big that now he has security and a barricade, but he still continues to be a small vada pav wala who is known all over India. In fact, I am told that Mr. Ajim Premji also comes and buys vada pav from him. So, and there are a whole bunch of people who, is Ashok Vada Pav wala is like world famous in the other kind of, So it's a silly point, but I think you can remain small, you can have excellence, you can be profitable, if you want to kind of take a commercial view of it. So scale is not always the uh, end goal, or need not always be the end goal, and it need not be your end goal. I mean, that is like really my, because I've seen enough of these neighborhood kirana shops and panwalas, and those who are very successful, very good, and still happy and making money, as opposed to some of our very large unicorns who are very large, unprofitable, and burning cash every day. So, so yeah.
No, thanks. I mean, that was interesting. I think it is also very relevant in our perspective that you know. I mean, we both agreed that we don't really want to scale it up. Well, we want the flexibility, we want the time, and we want to be good at what we are doing instead of bringing in complexity of a large organization, consulting organization. So, well, so Samiran, any question you want to ask me quickly? Again, I will do it in rapid fire format.
No, I think very only thing I would like to say that in this uh, how do you pick a guest? I mean, is that what criteria must a guest meet to come on your show?
That's a good question. So of course, like you got to be famous. I mean, jokes apart, yeah. But see, my career started from customer service. Okay, so I have always been like very very customer centric. Sometimes it actually pisses off my colleagues. Okay, so I'm like, what is the value that we can provide to our audience? So it has been a mix. Some people I know personally, and I know that they have got an inspiring story to tell. Then there are some people who get recommended to us. So I've got like messages that, hey, this guy has a very inspiring story, can you bring him on ClariTea Chat? And some we accidentally bump in, like like with you, I heard your podcast, and like you were part of a couple of groups and all that, and I heard your podcast, and then I started, and I was like, yeah, this is a great story to tell. Yeah, but
This
it
is
is
more for all the
but I have been very
people who
picky.
still not made it here.
No, but I've been very picky. We're trying to stay true to the agenda, even though I get requests that you get some celebrities and all. I'm like, the agenda is like
True,
the
true.
value that you get from technology, and therefore we have to be true to that agenda. Okay, so we are at the fag end of. Thanks, Samiran, for that question. We are at the fag end of our session. A quick summary. We saw how Samiran moved from consulting to operations, operations to consulting, and then decided to come out and build a brand with Three Techies Mentor, and does a lot of things. So we discussed about this whole, like becoming an entrepreneur. The takeaways are that is one that thing that we want to come out of corporate, but then what is more important is to fill in the blanks. That what are you going to come, what are you going to do, what are you good at, what is the product or service that is going to be required in the market, that you will be paid for. Are there any liabilities that you carry, are there any EMIs that you carry, etc., etc. And you should have sufficient amount of interest, like what Samiran has, what I have. It should be sometimes they call it a portfolio life. You must have your portfolio ready before you say that, okay, you know what, now I am compromising with my portfolio if I continue to do my corporate life. Don't do it for the negative reasons that I'm fed up of it. Yeah, and yeah, there was this Aadhar experience, where he took a personal conviction very, very far and ended up in Aadhar. That almost seems like a slogan, Samiran. I took my
Totally.
conviction very far and ended up in Aadhar. We had a very interesting question from Amarinder about are RFPs dead, and I think there was a good discussion there that I mean, for the digital transformation, the systems of innovation and systems of differentiation, RFPs are dead, but they still may be useful if you're doing a system of records kind of implementation. And yeah, so that's I think I kind of wrapped up almost most of what we discussed. And then of course we had the rapid fire and very interesting tidbits about the DNB. Four past presidents having been interned at DNB, and DNB had like a very technology first kind of like brand. But yeah, nothing is permanent in this one. Hey guys, everyone, thank you for attending this 117th ClariTea Chat. For all of you, I don't know. I need to figure out why the attendance is not much today. But for all of you who are watching, who are going to be watching the recording, and who are hearing us as I say this, thank you to you too. We know most of you watch the recording. And thanks for giving us your Saturday afternoon. And thank you, Samiran, a lot for coming on Clarity Chat. The notice was relatively short, and then sharing with us your journey.
Thanks, Jagdish, for having me over, and I really loved it. And if you may permit me, I just have one small thing to add, if that's all. Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
other thing, yeah, so one very small thing I completely. So the other thing in the journey, is important is give back, okay, and it's in the smallest way possible. So I won't want to put a notion of philanthropy to it, but I think there needs to be that space in your life to do a little more and give back. So I do a lot of work in the animal welfare space, which is welfare for stray dogs and wildlife SOS and all that. But one of the things I kind of strongly believe in is that we don't have to do huge work, but if you can improve the lives of the people who are immediately around you, you would have done a good service, which is like your domestic help, your driver, and make sure that their next generations are better off than them. And that's one of the philosophies I kind of live by. And if I find out to be very useful and practical, and if any of you adopt that in your life, I think you'll find that to be also very, very rewarding. You don't have to think big there again. It's not about scale. It's again about just making that difference in the lives of those 5 people. So it is 1 into 5. So you will have already created a multiple of 5 in your own ecosystem. So yeah, sorry for the
Excellent.
digression, but
No, no, no. I mean, Samiran, thanks for picking it up. I mean, I call it paying forward. It's like,
absolutely.
we are where we are, with the blessings as well as support and mentoring, and like, and promote, and a lot of people promoting us, standing by us and
Right.
all that. I don't think we can afford to pay them back. A lot of them don't need it actually, right? So I think the best
Absolutely.
way to do it is to pay forward, that whoever pulled you up in life, you pull 5 more people, and that's what.
Agreed. Totally. Totally. Very well said. Yeah.
That's the best tribute to all the people who have helped you, and who have promoted you, right? Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, actually, the least that you can do, with our gray hair, at least, is like, just to inspire people. Somebody doing a good job, just like, pat their back, and they say, yeah, yeah, please keep it up, and that guy will, like, will do it 4 times over.
Agreed.
Everyone
Agreed.
is looking for that motivation. Okay, on that positive closing note, guys, pay forward. We are blessed. If you are watching this Clarity Chat, you're probably in the top, whatever, 1 or 2% of the
Absolutely.
well-fed people. So on that note, thank you everyone, and thank you, Samiran, for being part of this Clarity Chat. Bye bye. Have
Thanks
a
a lot.
great
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Bye.